Big Podcast.
It's Bill, the Big Podcast, the marketing podcast for podcasters. I'm David Hooper. BigPodcast.com is the site. This is the podcast about growing your podcast. I'm going to use the word podcast a lot in this podcast. And the irony is, if I go off topic for just a minute, still on topic though, because you're a podcaster, I listen to playback and sometimes I don't say that S, podcast. Drives you crazy. So quick lesson there. Edit yourself, man. Play yourself back. Find where your problems are. Anyway, the marketing podcast for podcasters. I'm going to flip it on its head for this episode because this is something that is counterintuitive for most people. And you're going to understand it when I read you this letter. This is from Clouse. I've talked about Jay on this podcast before. I'll have him linked in the episode notes. Podcast. There it is. Podcast.bigpodcast.com. He says this: imagine that you're going about your day and suddenly cross paths with someone new. They strike up a conversation. You really get a feeling quickly that you guys can get along. They invite you to a party, and you say yes because you're excited to get to know this person even better. Then, later, when you show up at the party, this person doesn't remember you. They don't spend any time talking to you, and they generally seem totally disinterested in you. In fact, the only thing they seem to actually care about is meeting new people and inviting them to the next party. That would feel like a letdown, wouldn't it? You probably would change your optimistic, positive impression of that person pretty quickly. That's what I see happening all the time online. Creators, and he uses the word creator. I'm going to say it's a podcaster, YouTuber, somebody's creating something. I don't know if you relate to that, but when he says creators, just think of podcasters. Creators are so obsessed with getting new followers, new subscribers, new attention that they completely disregard and take for granted the people who have already given it to them. When you don't show genuine care, curiosity, or appreciation for the people who engage with your work, how do you think that makes them feel? We're all busy. Trending to every single comment, reply, or DM is not possible at some level of scale. And luckily, people have some empathy and understanding for that too. But how long would you try and engage someone in conversation before you give up? When you take the individuals in your audience for granted, they'll stop showing up to your party. You'll notice a decline in engagement metrics like replies, likes, etc., and you'll think, I need to get in front of new people. You may even be successful in doing so. But if you continue the cycle of attract and ignore, you'll hit a plateau or worse. The creator landscape is obsessed with attention attraction. But what if you were obsessed with attention retention? When you're able to not only attract attention but maintain a relationship, you're building on a solid foundation. You're not just trying to tread water or stay afloat, you're creating a groundswell of support. Retained attention grows your non-social media channels, email, podcasts, communities, or SMS. Retained attention creates owned distribution, and owned distribution creates freedom. I read that and wanted to share it with you because I think you can connect with that. I think that it is difficult when we have a message that we say once, for example, me talking into this microphone, you're hearing it, and a lot of other people are hearing it as well. You're saying this message once, and potentially tens of thousands of people are hearing that message and interacting with you and liking you and responding to you. And I get what he's saying here. I think this stuff is tough to manage. Let me tell you how I do it. I think you might find it helpful for what you're doing. Again, getting the message out to a lot of people and then having some of those people come back to you. I will say this, where I fail is email. If you are emailing me and it is not through the form on my website, and even sometimes through the form on my website, there's a tendency for messages to get lost. One of the things that I've switched just recently, within the last couple of weeks, and you'll start to see this on my mailing list when I send out different tips, not the newsletter that comes out every week, but individual emails from me, is I set up a separate email address for that so that if somebody does respond, I can actually respond to those people. But in general, what I try to do, and you will know this in the newsletter, which you can't respond to via email, but because you can't respond to via email, what I try to do, and I encourage this, if you've got a comment, I want to hear it, I want that done via social media. That can be Twitter. That can be Mastodon. That can be Instagram. And the way that I organize these, instead of logging into Twitter every day or Mastodon every day or Instagram every day, I've got a unified inbox. One login that I've got, one box with every single social media channel that I have all in one place. And I can go down the list with something like Twitter, Mastodon, even Instagram for the most part. You're limited on the amount of stuff that you can send me. 280 characters, 400 characters, whatever. Pretty easy to get through. Somebody's got a quick question, they send it to me, I'm going to respond to it. If somebody shares my stuff, I'm going to say, hey, thanks for the share, or something along those lines. If you're curious about this, hit me up at David Hooper on Twitter. I'm easy to find on Mastodon. And if you need an invite from Mastodon, by the way, newsletter.bigpodcast.com. I've got plenty of them. It's a server just for podcasters. So it's not going to be just me there. It's a lot of other people that you know as well. Basically what I've got with either this dedicated email for the people on my list or the unified inbox that takes care of really 3 or 4 social media channels. I've got LinkedIn on there, some other ones that I don't really use a whole lot, but they're there. Basically what I've got is a system. And if you want to respond to people and do what Jay's talking about, taking care of the audience that you've got. And you've heard this if you've been in marketing, it's 7 times harder to get a new customer than it is to keep one. That kind of thing. That's basically what we're doing here. The bottom line is you've got a lot of people that are already listening to you. And if you want to build a community, you can probably build the community off of them. They're already enthusiastic about it. They already like what you're doing. They already like you. They're already trying to connect with you, which is probably the toughest thing that we've got as podcasters. Interaction usually works one way, us to them. So you've got a really dedicated person if he's going to come to you. Having a system through that dedicated email address, through that unified inbox, that is going to help you tremendously. I don't want to get too deep into this on this episode, but in a couple of episodes, I've got something coming up about playing to your audience, meaning playing to the audience that you've got. I'm going to go a little bit deeper into this. For now, your action step is to set up a system. If it's a dedicated email address for your listeners, if it's one social media platform that you're sending people to, if it's a unified inbox with multiple social media platforms, do something to have a system. Related to this, I understanding about liking one social media platform, but that stuff is up and down and up and down and up and down, man. Twitter, crazy now. These things do come and go. I wouldn't suggest having just one. You can focus on one. The main thing that you want out of that one network is that you've got a system. You can do that with a unified inbox. Juphy, JUPHY.com. That'll handle it for you. There are other platforms that'll handle it for you. That is your action step for now. Set up a system for you to connect with the people that are already listening to you and then connect with them. And you can try this with me. Like I said, go to @DavidHooper on Twitter, Mastodon, LinkedIn. Hit me up, man. I'm not saying it's perfect. I might miss one occasionally. But more or less, even if you're sharing my stuff on Twitter, I'm going to thank you for the share. I'm going to engage with you. And this is how I do it. This is how audiences are built. And again, this is the kind of thing that I'm going to get into in a couple of episodes. Kind of the secret is this. Your audience that you have now, they are telling other people about you. It's not just them that you're talking to. So if you've got 100 people listening to your podcast and they're having a great experience with you and you just blow their minds, they're talking to other people. You're also playing to a bigger audience. Again, we're going into it deeper. Here's how to make sure that you do not miss that episode. You can go to my subscribe and follow page. That's what the kids are calling it now. It's not just subscribe. It's also follow. But regardless of what you call it, this is how to do it. It's bigpodcast.com/subscribe. That's the URL. Type it in your browser. bigpodcast.com/subscribe. I've got 3 ways for you to subscribe. I've got an iPhone button. If you're on the iPhone, it makes it really easy for you to listen to me. Android, 1 click is all it takes. You're going to get that episode on Android. I've got an RSS feed. I've also got a bonus QR code. If you want to scan a QR code, regardless of the phone that you are on, it will get you Build a Big Podcast to your phone. Again, you're not going to miss an episode. Unsubscribe at any time if it does not work for you. Also, the mailing list that I mentioned, that's on the website. I'll send you my podcast growth toolkit. It's going to help you grow your audience. It's free. And again, no obligation, bigpodcast.com/subscribe. I will see you there, and I will see you here on the next episode of Build a Big Podcast.